Okay, yes, Hayden, before we get started, you can have a snack. Here is a virtual snack for you. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Anyway, in Chapter 15, I'm going to explain the planning of adjusting entries. We've done something like this before last semester, but it's a little bit different with a corporation. Management decisions about future business operations are often based on financial information. This information shows whether the business is making a profit or incurring a loss. Profit or loss information helps a business plan for future changes. Financial information is also needed to prepare required tax reports. Businesses may choose any 12-month period or fiscal year for reporting their financial performance. In choosing its financial year, a business will take into account the way its business activity flows throughout the calendar year. 3 Green uses a fiscal year that begins on January 1st and ends on December 31st. Therefore, 3 Green summarizes its financial information on December 31st of each year. Some general ledger accounts need to be brought up to date before financial statements are prepared. Adjusting entries are used to bring the general ledger accounts up to date. In Chapter 6, Delgado Web Services entered adjusting entries for supplies and prepaid insurance. 3 Green also makes adjusting entries to supplies and prepaid insurance. However, 3 Green adjusts these accounts as well. Merchandise inventory, accumulated depreciation, interest receivable, and federal income tax payable. The adjusting entry for merchandise inventory is unique to a merchandising business. The other adjusting entries could also be made by a service business. The adjusting entry for federal income tax payable is unique to corporations. This adjusting entry is not made for a proprietorship because taxes are paid by the owner, not the business. The first step in preparing adjusting entries is to prepare a trial balance. The trial balance provides a proof that the debits and credits in the general ledger are equal. A trial balance also provides a complete list of accounts that we may need to be brought up to date. The trial balance prepared before adjusting entries are posted is called the adjusted trial balance. In Part 1, we used a worksheet to plan adjustments. The worksheet contained a trial balance and columns to enter adjustments. Here was our trial balance. Here was our adjustments column. And this is what we did last semester. Rather than using a worksheet, 3 Green uses adjusted trial balance and records the adjustments directly into the general journal. When preparing adjusting trial balance, the first thing you're going to do is write the title of each general ledger account in the account title column. You write the accounts in the same order they appear in the general ledger. All accounts are listed regardless of whether or not there is a balance. Listing all accounts reduces the possibility of overlooking an account that needs to be brought up to date. The second thing, you're going to write the balance of each account in the appropriate debit or credit column. The amounts are taken from the general ledger accounts. Thirdly, you will total, prove, and rule the debit and credit columns. And these should equal out before you go any further. Now we're going to go through our adjusting entries. Remember, when you have adjusting entries, 4 questions are asked to analyze the adjustments. First of all, you ask what the balances are. What should these balances be? What must be done to correct these balances? And what is my actual adjusting entry? We're going to work with this by doing the work together problem. So first of all, what you need to do is open your book to page 445 so that you can see the problem that we're working with. Again, as we go through this, make sure you're not just copying what I tell you to do, but make sure that you understand what I'm telling you to do too. Anytime I go too fast, make sure you just hit the pause button on this video. And sometimes you probably wish you could do that in class with teachers. Just hit the pause button for a little bit, but just hit the pause button so that you can catch up and so that you understand where everything is coming to. Okay, so you should be on page 445 in your textbook. And you also need your work together papers. If you did not receive the packet of papers, then make sure that you print them out before we get started here. Okay, work together 15.1. It says page 15 of the general journal and partial completed adjusting entry trial balance are given in the working papers. Selected general ledger accounts for Southside Electric are provided on the pages I listed before. We're going to prepare the adjusting entries for supplies and prepaid insurance. Okay, so if you take a look at your papers, first of all, we'll take a look at what they look like. If you look at page 427 and 428 of your working papers, you will see that's an unadjusted trial balance. And if we were to put it together, it would be a really long sheet. It starts on the first page, 427, and continues on to page 428. So that is like one big long column of all the accounts that we have in our general ledger. Then on page 429 is the general journal where we are going to record the adjusting entries. You can see that it carried through an adjusting entry from last chapter. So we'll be using those pages right now. So the first thing in the problem, it says enter the following accounts on the unadjusted trial balance. Obtain the account balances from the general ledger accounts. So we are going to add those 4 accounts to our unadjusted trial balance, and you can see there's some blank spaces in there that we're going to put them. And our balances then will come from the accounts that are in our general ledger, which are on page 431, 432, 433 of your working papers. Make sense? Okay, on to the first one, the allowance for uncollectible accounts. So we have our unadjusted trial balance. You should be on page 427. We're going to write allowance for uncollectible accounts. We're just filling in some of the blanks. Instead of having you do the entire document, you're just going to get a little taste of it by just entering some of the accounts. Okay, once you have written that in, we will turn to our allowance for uncollectible account, which is on page 431 in your working papers. And you can see that it has a credit balance of $48.67. And again, your unadjusted trial balance contains all of your accounts in your general ledger, whether they have a balance or not. Okay, our second one, according to the book, is store supplies. So we're going to put supplies for store. When we check that balance on page 431, we will see that it has a debit balance of $4,483.62. The next one we're going to enter is accumulated depreciation for office equipment. If you look at page 432 of your working papers, you will see that accumulated depreciation for office equipment is $2,395. And the fourth one is insurance expense. And that was this one fits into the slot that's empty on page 428 down to your expenses. And when you flip to your insurance expense on page 433, you will see that it has a zero balance. We have not used that, and we will be using it eventually. Okay, next it says, number 2, total, prove, and rule the unadjusted trial balance. So you know how to total, prove, and rule. You will go to the bottom of your unadjusted trial balance, which is on page 428, because remember, it's a continuation problem. It just doesn't all fit on one page. When you total up, draw a single line. You will add up the debit column, so you'd add up all the numbers from page 427 in the debit column and all of the numbers on page 428 of the debit column, and you'd come up with $624,362.52. Then we go through and add up the credit column, And obviously in this problem, we're going to come up with the same number, $624,362.52. If these two numbers do not equal out, remember you have to go back into your general ledger and figure out why they don't. After we're done and they balance out, we will double rule. Next, we're going to go on to the third step of the work together problem. Journalize the adjusting entries for supplies and prepaid insurance. The December 31st value of supplies and prepaid insurance are determined to be, and you have the list there. So when they did the inventory or they took a look at what the value of prepaid insurance was, this is what they came up with at the end of the fiscal period. Remember, we have to go through the questions. Our first question is, what is the balance of office supplies? So if you look on page 427 of your working papers, you can see that office supplies has a debit balance of $3,108.08. What should the balance be for office supplies? If you look in your book, on page 445 in your book, you can see that the office supplies, once they did the inventory, it is now worth $548. So again, it went down. You can see that it's gone down from the beginning of the fiscal period to the end. What must be done to correct the account balance? You will decrease office supplies by the difference, $3,108.08 minus $548, and you come up with $2,560.08. What adjusting entries are made? You are going to debit supply expense because that account is going up by $2,560.08, and you're going to credit supplies because that is going down by the same amount. To record that in our journal, we go to the next line. We write the date as the 31st. We always write the debit entry first, so we're going to put supply expense for office, and we will debit it for the amount that we came up with, $2,560.08. We will credit our supplies for our office for the same amount. Remember, there's no source document because we write the words adjusting entries at the top because it's an end of the fiscal period process. We will go on to our next adjustment, our second adjustment. What is the balance of store supplies? If you look on page 427 of your working papers, you will see that it has a debit balance of $4,483.62. That means that you have some supplies worth that value. What should the balance be when you did the inventory? According to the book, your inventory now says that it is $640. So you can see the store supplies went down by quite a bit. What must be done to correct the account balance? You're going to decrease your store supplies by the difference, $4,483.62 minus $640, and you're going to decrease store supplies by $3,843.62. What adjusting entries have to be made? We're going to debit our supply expense because that's going up for the amount of supplies that we've used up, and we're going to credit supplies because that account is going to go down by that same amount. To enter that into our journal, we write the date. Our debit entry goes to supply expense for store, and our credit goes to supplies for store. Remember, when you list the credit in the column, you indent slightly and you will write that amount. On to the third adjustment for this problem, and it is for prepaid insurance. And we're going to do the same thing. What is the balance of prepaid insurance? If you look on page 427 of your working papers, you can see that your balance of prepaid insurance on your unadjusted trial balance is $11,200. What should the balance be? The amount of prepaid insurance that you have that has not expired throughout the fiscal period is $1,600. You can see that it's gone down quite a bit. You used up some of that insurance. What must be done to correct the account balance? You're going to decrease prepaid insurance by $9,600. You take the $11,200 minus the $1,600, and you come up with a new balance. What adjusting entries have to be made? You are going to debit insurance expense because you have to increase the amount of insurance expense by the amount that has expired throughout the fiscal period. You're going to credit prepaid insurance because that prepaid insurance has to go down by the same amount. To record this, put the date, the 31st, insurance expense debit, prepaid insurance credit. When you are done, your adjusting entries should look like this, minus the post reference because we have not posted up yet. But again, we have this one from last chapter, and then we have the two expenses and our insurance expense. Remember, we're bringing these accounts up to date. Remember, when you buy prepaid insurance, you pay for the insurance and every day you use some up. You don't record every day that you've used up that insurance. So at the end of the fiscal period, you have to adjust that. The same with your supplies. Every day you might use a pen, a pencil, you might use cash register tape and so forth. And when you use it, you don't decrease your supplies there. All you do is you make the adjustment at the end of the fiscal period. Now we have completed the first section of Chapter 15. Your assignment is to complete application problem 15-1 on page 465 in your textbook. When you are done, submit it under assignment 15-1. And I need to see pages 427, 428, and 429 of your working papers.